Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're going to tackle the world of used electric vehicles, or EVs, as I'm sure you all know them.
Should be interesting.
For sure, especially with all this buzz around them.
Yeah.
We dug up some reports on used EV pricing and market trends. Some pretty fascinating stuff.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. Hopefully by the end of this, we'll all be pros at navigating the used EV market, whether you're thinking about buying, selling, or just, staying in the loop.
Sounds good.
So one of these reports says used EV sales were up a crazy 62.6% in 2024.
Wow, that's huge.
Right. And the used EV market share hit like a record 1.9%.
Definitely seeing a shift in the whole automotive landscape, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not like a little blip on the radar either, right?
Right. Seems like a real move towards, sustainable transportation. It's kind of like, remember a few years back, finding a used EV was like finding a
unicorn.
Exactly. A unicorn. Now they're popping up everywhere.
And that's driving the market forward, huh?
Definitely a factor.
Okay, that makes sense. But for someone thinking about actually buying a used EV, is this good news, bad news?
Mostly good, I'd say, especially if you're looking for a deal.
How so?
Well, more used EVs out there means prices are getting competitive.
Makes sense.
Yeah. A good chunk of used EVs are now priced under $30,000.
Wow, really?
Yep, and some even dip below $25,000.
Wait, under $25,000. Isn't that where some folks could get those tax credits?
You got it. Depending on the specific credit and your eligibility, buying used could mean some serious savings.
Interesting. So buying used could actually be a good financial move.
Potentially, yeah. And there's something else that could push prices down even further.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The what we call the lease wave.
The lease wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember back in 2023, 2024, lease rates for EVs were crazy high.
Oh, yeah. Way higher than gas cars.
Almost double in some cases. Well, guess what? Those leases are starting to expire.
So all those leased EVs are about to hit the market.
Exactly. We could see over 1 million used EVs hitting the market by 2027.
1 million. Wow. That's a lot of EVs. But wouldn't that be bad for people who already own EVs?
Mm-hmm.
Like, their cars would lose value.
It's a valid concern. An influx like that could definitely lead to some decreased value. It's supply and demand, really.
Right. Makes sense. But there's got to be a bright side, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Lower prices are great for buyers. More people will be able to afford an EV.
True. Good for the environment and all that.
Exactly. Plus, remember those falling battery prices we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah. One of the reports said they dropped something like 20% just in 2024.
Yep. That's huge for used EV owners.
Okay, I'm not quite seeing the connection.
I mean, if you buy a used EV with an older battery, replacing it down the line might not be as pricey as you think.
Okay, I see. So cheaper batteries, more used EVs on the market, potentially lower prices. Sounds like a good time to buy.
Could be. But, we should balance the excitement with a little bit of caution, too.
Oh, come on. Spill the beans. What's the catch?
Well, cheaper batteries might be great for consumers, but they could be a challenge for leasing companies.
How so?
Your whole business model is built around reselling those leased EVs after a few years. If resale value tanks, it cuts into their profits. Could even make it harder to lease new EVs.
Ah, so it's not all sunshine and roses. Interesting.
Yeah. And, the rapid decline in used EV values might also impact how quickly new EVs get adopted.
How's that?
Well, if people see used EVs losing value fast, they might hesitate to buy new. They know they could lose a lot if they resell later.
Ah, so it's a delicate balance. More affordable used EVs are great for buyers, but it could complicate things for the industry overall.
Exactly. There are a lot of moving parts here. In fact, one of the sources we looked at had a pretty interesting anecdote about this. A dealership called Greenwave, they saw their EV sales double year over year in the last quarter of 2024.
Wow, double. That's incredible.
Yeah. But it wasn't a steady climb, you know? Well, sales were kind of sluggish at the beginning of the year, but after the election results were finalized, boom, sales exploded.
Really? You think the election had that much of an impact?
It's possible. People might have held off on big purchases like cars until they had a clearer picture of the political landscape.
Right.
What policies might be coming.
Makes sense, especially with those government incentives and tax credits for EVs.
Right. So, as you can see, the used EV market is influenced by a whole bunch of factors, from consumer confidence to politics.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah. Exciting, but with its ups and downs.
So we've got record sales, battery costs dropping, and a wave of used EVs about to hit. But we also got to watch out for those potential downsides, like the impact on leasing and those battery anxieties.
You got it. It's a fascinating landscape for sure.
It is. And we're just getting started.
Yeah. Next up, we'll dive into the specifics. What's driving demand, what to look for when buying, all that good stuff.
All right, so we've got the big picture. Now I'm kind of curious about the techie stuff, like what kind of cool EV innovations are happening that might, trickle down to the used market.
Oh man, there's so much going on. It's hard to even know where to start. Like, we're talking advancements in battery chemistry, charging infrastructure, even vehicle-to-grid technology.
Whoa. Vehicle-to-grid. Sounds a little sci-fi, no?
It does, yeah. It basically means your EV can power your home.
Seriously?
Yep. Your car becomes like a backup power source.
That's amazing. So, if the power goes out, my car can keep the lights on.
Exactly. And it's not just blackouts. Vehicle-to-grid tech can help balance the whole electric grid. Makes renewable energy like solar and wind more reliable.
Wow, okay. I'm sold. So, say I'm ready to hit the used EV lot. What should I be looking for?
Well, first things first, the battery. That's the heart of an EV. Check its range. How far it goes on one charge, its age, and its overall health.
Okay, but how do I, check a battery's health? Do I need a doctor's note?
Not quite. Lots of dealerships and third-party services offer battery health checks. They basically hook up your potential EV to some diagnostic tools, analyze its performance. They can tell you about its capacity, how much life it has left.
So, no stethoscope required.
Nope. But you're right, it's similar to a checkup. Just like you wouldn't buy a used gas car without checking the engine, right? The battery is that important for an EV.
Got it. Battery health, top of the list. What else?
Definitely check the vehicle's maintenance history, like any used car. Regular servicing, any accidents, major repairs. You want one that's been well taken care of.
Good point. And of course, a test drive. Got to feel that electric acceleration. But those tax credits we talked about, are those like a guaranteed thing if I buy used?
They can definitely help, but the rules are a bit tricky. Depends on the specific car, model year, even your income. You might need to do some research or chat with a tax pro to make sure you qualify.
Okay, so I'm taking notes. Check the battery, check the records, take it for a spin, and figure out those tax credits. Anything else I'm missing?
One more thing. Think about your driving needs. How far do you drive each day? Do you have a place to charge at home, at work? That'll help you figure out what kind of range you need and what type of EV would fit your lifestyle.
Right. Got to find one that matches my life. But a part of me just wants to zip around in a cool electric car.
Oh, they're definitely fun. That instant torque, the quiet ride, the regenerative braking. It's a whole different driving experience.
Wait, hold up. Regenerative braking? That sounds kind of like magic. Like my brakes regenerate themselves.
Not quite. It's a feature where when you brake, the electric motor helps slow the car down and uses that energy to recharge the battery.
Whoa. So you get a little bit of energy back every time you brake.
Yep. Pretty cool, huh?
That's amazing. You've convinced me I need to test drive a used EV.
You won't regret it. And with the used market growing so fast, there's tons of options. But it's bigger than just individual drivers switching over, right?
True. What does this whole used EV thing mean for the planet? For the future of, transportation in general?
It's a big deal. Making EVs more affordable, more accessible. The used market is speeding up the transition to electric transportation, which is good news for everyone.
Okay, lay it on me. How so?
For starters, less gas guzzlers on the road, better for the environment, less pollution, cleaner air, less reliance on fossil fuels, good for the planet, good for our health.
So it's like this chain reaction. More used EVs means fewer gas cars, which means a healthier planet.
Exactly. Plus, think about the jobs and innovation it's creating in the auto industry. It's a whole new economic landscape.
It's like a revolution. But come on, there's got to be some roadblocks along the way, right?
Of course. One of the biggest is charging stations. The network is growing, but it needs to catch up with all these new EVs.
Yeah, I've heard that range anxiety thing, the fear of running out of juice before you find a charger.
It's real, especially in areas where charging stations are still scarce. It's getting better all the time, though, and home charging is becoming more common, so for a lot of folks, range anxiety isn't really an issue.
But what about folks who can't charge at home? Apartment dwellers? People without garages?
Good point. We need more public charging, especially in cities. Governments and cities are working on it, but there's still a way to go.
So charging infrastructure is one hurdle. What about battery recycling? All these EVs. What happens to the batteries when they die?
That's a big one. We got to make sure those batteries are recycled properly, not ending up in landfills. Luckily, there are companies figuring out how to recover valuable materials from old batteries and reuse them. It's a growing industry.
Phew, that's a relief. Sounds like even though there are bumps in the road, people are working on solutions.
Yep. The switch to electric won't be easy, but the benefits are huge. And the used EV market is helping make that transition happen.
It's really fascinating. The used EV market is like a tiny version of this huge shift that's happening. It's not just cars, it's tech, sustainability, the whole future of how we get around. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface, right?
Oh, yeah, there's so much more to explore. In the final part, we'll zoom in on some specific models, those regional price variations, and what the future might hold for used EVs.
Okay, so we've talked about like the big trends, the tech stuff, but I want to get down to the nitty gritty. What are we actually seeing out there? Like, what are some popular used EV models?
Well, Tesla's still a big name, obviously, but it's not just them anymore. We're seeing a lot more used models from Chevrolet, Nissan, BMW even. Hyundai and Kia are making moves too.
Yeah, makes sense. More and more companies are jumping on that EV train. So what's the variety like? Can you find everything, like those tiny electric city cars, all the way up to big family SUVs?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. You can find just about anything these days. From compact hatchbacks like the Nissan Leaf, perfect for zipping around town, to spacious SUVs like the Tesla Model X for, the whole family and all their stuff. And everything in between, of course.
Awesome. Sounds like there's a used EV for every need and budget. Speaking of budget, we talked about used EV values going down overall, but are there like regional differences in pricing? Like, is a used Tesla in California going to cost me more than, say, one in Texas?
That's a great question. And yeah, the answer is definitely yes. Just like with gas cars, the price of a used EV can be different depending on where you are. A couple reasons for that. Supply and demand is a big one. In places where EVs are super popular, like California, you might see higher prices because there's more people wanting to buy them.
Okay, that makes sense. Location matters. What about other things that could affect pricing? Like the age of the car. Does a 2018 model lose value faster than a 2022 model?
Yeah, definitely. EVs depreciate over time, just like any car. Generally, the newer it is, the less it's going to have depreciated. But with EVs, there's that extra thing to consider, the battery. Remember, we talked about how battery tech is always evolving.
Oh, right. So a newer EV probably has a fancier battery with longer range and faster charging.
Exactly. And that can affect the resale value of older EVs, even if they're in good shape. It's kind of like buying a used smartphone. A 2-year-old model might still work fine, but it probably won't have all the latest features or the same battery life as a brand new one.
Perfect analogy. So the battery's a big deal when shopping for a used EV. But even if those older models don't have the best batteries, they could still be a good starting point for people new to EVs, right?
Absolutely. A good way to get your feet wet without spending a fortune. And as battery tech keeps getting better, the cost of replacing an older battery will likely come down, making those models even more appealing. Good for buyers, good for the planet.
Okay, so we've covered the current state of the used EV market, popular models, pricing, regional stuff. Now, what about the future? What's your prediction? What's coming down the road for used EVs?
My prediction, a huge boom in the next few years. That wave of lease returns we talked about, that's going to bring a flood of affordable, good quality EVs to the market. EVs for everyone.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Sounds like things are about to really take off. But remember those challenges we talked about? Like the impact on leasing companies, the need for more chargers, the whole battery recycling thing. How do you see those playing out?
Those are definitely important issues. The industry and policymakers need to get ahead of them. But I'm optimistic. As the market grows, solutions will pop up. We're already seeing innovation in battery recycling, and governments are investing in charging infrastructure. It's all about staying ahead of the curve.
Being prepared, adaptable, kind of like we got to be when navigating the used EV market itself.
Exactly. Used EVs are exciting, but the market's always changing. Got to stay informed and be ready to adjust as things evolve. That's part of the fun.
Love it. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our electrifying journey into the world of used EVs. We've covered so much, from record sales and those drop-in battery costs to specific models, regional price differences, and even a peek into the future. What a ride.
It has been. But remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. The used EV market is dynamic. It's always changing. What we discussed today is just a little snapshot. So stay curious, keep exploring, and maybe even take a used EV for a test drive yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Whether you're thinking about buying, selling, or just fascinated by the future of transportation, I hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the confidence to navigate this exciting new world. Thanks for joining us.